So I want to welcome you. This is Doula Givers Institute, and this is the Good Death webinar. This is honoring humanity through end-of-life planning. And I think it's so important for us at this moment in time to remember that we are part of this beautiful thing called humanity, and that we are all so much similar. And how can we honor that part of our journey that is an inevitable part with love, with support, and with clarity around this? So this is going to be a presentation about the 3 keys to becoming a confident end-of-life caregiver. And I think that word confident is so important that I really want you to hear, is that when we pretend right now, like we do, that death is optional, we don't want to talk about it, we don't, have any, maybe it won't be so bad, maybe it won't show up. And that's not how it can go well at all. So there's practical things, but there's also a lot of incredible wisdom. And we're hearing from people at the end of life that can have it go really well for something that's already challenging, for something that is 100% guaranteed. What are the things that I've been privileged to see that can make it go well and help support you helping your loved one? And of course, ourselves at the end of life. And we're going to cover those. So tonight you're going to learn, I'm going to cover the 3 phases of end of life and the interventions to use for comfort in all 3 of those phases. So you understand what that totality looks like at the very end and how you can identify where your loved one's at and what intervention to use for comfort. Now, number 2, I'm going to talk to you about planning ahead. And I want you to know that in my experience, and I've been honored and blessed to be with over 1,000 people at the end of life, that it didn't matter the disease process that somebody had, their end of life went well when they planned ahead for it. So there was a blueprint and a roadmap. I think that I always make that analogy with the babies coming in. Sometimes we're planning even before we're pregnant, bringing that bundle of joy into the world, and we don't do anything really for the opposite end of life. But we wouldn't try and have a baby without some sort of plan, even though, let's be very honest, many times that plan sort of goes out the window and things change quickly, because that's how it does. And end of life can be the same way, but at least there's a blueprint and a roadmap for that. And number 3, and this is probably one of the most exciting things at this moment, there's something about the rebirth of death awareness right now and the readoption of old ritual and different things in traditions and cultures, but then also adding in the new progressive choices for life celebration and life disposition. And we are going to share those, and they could change everything for you. And if I may, I would like to just take a minute and introduce myself. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. I am a registered nurse by trade. I live in the United States. I'm a former hospice nurse, which is an end-of-life nurse, and then oncology nurse, which is a cancer nurse. I am a founding member of NHPCO's End-of-Life Doula Council. That's the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. I am also a founding member and former vice president of NEDA, the National End-of-Life Doula Alliance. I'm the founder and creator of the International Doula Givers Institute. This is my life's purpose. This is why I'm here. It chooses you, which I'll often say. And if you follow the work that we do here, we do everything we possibly can to help every family have the resources, the education, and the support to allow them to have a positive end of life with the people they love and also with themselves. Learning about end of life planning and planning ahead has 3 main gifts. Number 1, it empowers us with the truth, the skills, and reduces fear of death, which, by the way, death is the number 1 fear in this world at this moment. The number 1 fear in the world at this moment. Number 2, it allows the grief and bereavement period to be as healthy as possible. This conversation and this webinar has the ability from people who've given me the feedback to help them heal past grief. And I'm talking about people who've had their children have their end of lives, which I don't think anything could be too much harder than that. I can't even imagine. But holding on to grief that's been stuck, it has allowed them to move through that and find a healing spot within that. And then number 3, inspiring about life and learning green options that help heal our planet. So I love, if you get to know me, I love a win-win-win situation. And this is a win-win-win situation across the board with so many benefits to this conversation and this webinar. Now, the whole reason why Doula Givers Institute started and all this education is this: 9 out of 10 people polled say they want to be cared for at home when they become terminally ill. And let's just take a minute. If you just take a minute right now and think for yourself, where would you want to be at the end of your life? Do you want to be in a hospital? Do you want to be in a nursing home? Or would you want to be home? And most people will agree that they want to be home. Well, 98% of the care determined by Medicare is done by family caregivers for that person at end of life, even when hospice is on board, hospice is a beautiful model of care in theory. But there's gaps in the system right now. And so if the family is responsible for 98% of that care, and they don't know the first thing usually about how to care for someone at end of life, where does that leave us? That leaves us with a webinar like this, and it leaves us with a book called The Good Death to really help fill in those gaps. Now, this was a source by the National Hospice Organization in 1996. Every single poll survey is the same. Families usually don't know the first thing about how to care for someone at the end of life, yet as a hospice nurse, that is exactly what we expect them to do. And there's no fault here. There's no pointing fingers. That does not help anything, but it's extremely important to understand where we were, where we got to this space, what are the obstacles, and what we need to do to move forward so that people have what they need. We can't go back and do end of life again. And it's all based on the reimbursement structure that's dictated by Medicare about how long a actual practitioner, a hospice worker, can be in the home. They've determined that it's an average of 30 minutes a day. Now, the model is that the hospice nurse is supposed to teach the loved ones how to do that end of life care. As a hospice nurse, I was there for 1 hour once a week if my patient was what you call stable. The late time that people come on hospice services, the fear of death being the number one fear. When people are petrified, they can't learn. So this model isn't working well. We need to fill in those gaps. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's the reality of the structure of our system right now. There are major gaps in it. There's gaps in time, there's gaps in education, and there's gaps of good end of lives. We can't go back and do that again. So we have to say, okay, what do we need to do to change this? And it's a multi-pronged approach. Number one, it's planning ahead, which we'll get there, and thinking about what I'd want or not want at that point. And another major part is giving the skills back to family members of how to care for their loved one at the end of life. So they're prepared, and they should learn it before we ever get there. Now, this is the Medicare study. A recently released Medicare study revealed that a hospice worker is only in the home of an end-of-life patient for 30 minutes per day on average. This means that 98% of the hands-on care is performed by untrained family caregivers. As a hospice nurse, I remember the minute that I would walk into a home, put down my nursing bag, you could see the stress go down. And I'd be there for an hour, assessing the patient, doing some teaching. And then the minute that I put that bag back on my shoulder and walked out of that house, the stress went up. And I have to tell you, there were many times that I walked out of that house knowing, number one, that family is not prepared at all. But number two, many times I knew that that person would die within the next couple of days, and that family was not ready at all. And it's a terrible, terrible feeling. So I actually wrote a training based on my experience and went to the CEO of my company of hospice and said, end of life is not going well for most of the families. We need to do more. And he said, we can't do more. That's all we can do. And I said, I have an idea. What about this training? And so the 3 phases of end of life, which I'm going to teach you tonight, interventions to use, teaches from start to finish. And he said, this is great. We can't do it. I said, why? He goes, we're not going to get reimbursed for it. So I just started, this is over 16 years ago. I just started to teach it at the local library. And then I put it online, and today it's one of the main, if not the main outreach that Doula Givers does. It's now available in 15 languages, which is amazing, for free, by the way. So we have to be able to identify what are the gaps and how do we fill them. Now, my patients, when I would come as a hospice nurse to see them as the dying patient in a hospital bed, would pull me over and say, look what I'm doing to my family. I feel terrible. And I look around and their family not sleeping, not eating, you know what it's like, that fight or flight. And here you have somebody who's dying, feeling guilty about the stress they're putting on their family. And they weren't wrong about the stress, but we don't want people to feel guilty at the end of life. And we don't want families to feel completely lost and in crisis. We have got to help get that education back to them. So, how can we support patients and families? This is the answer. This is the gap that we need to fill, and we should do it in multiple ways. This is one of the webinars, the Doula Givers Level 1 training. Certified end of life doulas to support people is another one. So, we have a multi pronged approach. But one of the first things that I think we need to take a deep breath, and if you would with me, let's just take a deep breath in this moment together. I want to thank you. We have so many people on tonight, and it's such an honor to be with you. And I know how valuable your time is. So I honor that and I thank you. But let's just take a deep breath in and hold it for a second and let it go. And really settle in the presence of this moment together. And let us remember that death is not a medical experience, it's a human one. And I think that we really forgot that across the board. I know we forgot it as medical practitioners. I know we forgot it as doctors. And I think we forgot it as families. We expect medical professionals and people to fix it. And end of life is not to be fixed, it's to be supported. And once you do hand it off into the medical treadmill, what I call a treadmill, because at a certain point when things can't be reversed and you're on do this, do that, do that, do that, do that to keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. There's a very gray area that we get into that we can't stop, that can cause a lot more discomfort, stress for something that can't be reversed. So to be mindful ahead of time of where that line is of quality of life for me subjectively is incredibly important for me to decide. So it's interesting because when I talk with doctors and I say, death is not a medical experience, it's a human one, they literally go, oh, right. Wait a minute. like this awareness is super important. And then with that, we are holistic. So it's a holistic experience. And it also needs to be brought back into the hands of families and communities with non-medical, meeting with medical to make the perfect whole. So 100 years ago, this was a skill of caring for the dying that was handed down generation to generation. It's only with the last 100 to 120 years that we've completely lost our way. Spoiler alert, we've been dying for thousands of years as a human race. We know how to do this. By the way, for thousands of years in different cultures and religions, death was revered and looked at as a sacred rite of passage. And I believe it's time to bring back those teachings and awareness. Doula Giver's 3 phases of end of life. You've got the shock phase, the stabilization phase, and the transition phase. The shock phase is when someone gets a terminal diagnosis. That's that first moment. And oftentimes there's an overwhelming feeling of shock for both patients and their loved ones. This shock can present itself in many ways, such as depression, denial, anger, and withdrawal. So what can you do? We want to show up. We want to make sure we show up. And here's the thing. I want to invite you to take this in, that end of life is not to be fixed. It's not to be feared, and it's not to be a panic situation. It's to be supported. It's a natural part of the loop. Yes, it is hard. Yes, I understand. We don't want to rush it, and we know that how hard it is, but we're making it 100,000 times more difficult. When we live with a lack of awareness that one day the journey will not be the same as I know it today, one of the things that I do is not appreciate this day to its fullest. And the other thing is that when it does show up, which we know 100% of the time, eventually it's going to show up, it's a crisis, it's a shock. So what you want to do is remember to always be present. You want to hold space for people in true presence, which is our best medicine to provide. You want to build trust with that person, even if it's with a family member. You want to make sure that you are present in your energy, that you are following through with what you're going to say when, holding the space as their body's declining and they're getting weaker. They want to know that somebody's there taking care of them. You want to meet them where they are emotionally. So when we shared in the previous slide, they can present in anger, withdrawal, denial. Meet them there, and meet them there with no judgment. If someone's in denial, is that okay? Absolutely. It's their journey. And denial is a protective mechanism. So, especially in this very beginning part, but I will tell you that when you're able to build trust, take care of acute symptoms and symptom management, people have the ability to start moving through the phases, which can really lead to a beautiful end of life. But again, it's not for me to decide. It's their journey. It's for me to show up and hold that space and do everything I can to make sure that their symptoms are managed and that they're loved and they're cared for. Give them back control. So many people think that at the end of life, and I understand it, that they lose all control over everything and they have no choices they can make. They have so many choices they can make. So ask what you can do for them. Give them back control. They might not physically be able to do the things anymore, but they can guide you on what's important. Maybe they haven't finished allocating some of their personal belongings, whatever it may be. It can be a whole array of things. Let them direct you and you help them. Give them back control. The only thing I won't negotiate on is safety, because there's two safety things that will always happen at the end of life, and I'll go over them in a minute. But we can prevent something really awful from happening when we're prepared for them, because we know that body's declining. That's the only thing I won't negotiate on. Everything else, it's their journey, and I'm here to support you on that. There are 3 questions that if you only walk away in tonight's webinar, remembering these 3 questions to ask every visit on every time that you see your loved one at end of life or whoever you're taking care of, you'll be a phenomenal support to them. So you want to ask these on every question, no matter what phase they're in. Number 1, are there any acute issues? An acute issue also is known as an immediate need. An example of that would be pain, nausea, exhaustion. Why do you think that these are so important to be asking every single time that you're visiting somebody? Why do you think that I have to every time, even if I'm going in to see, let's just say it's my mom. Say I'm going to see my mom every day. Her pain has been under control. Why am I still going to assess for that when I go in the next day? Because things can change that quickly. And people who are, and here's the thing that I feel like is missed the most is symptom management and good pain management. And that is really a missed piece of education that families don't have that can change everything. However, you want to be on top of that. And also, this is the example. If somebody has a very high pain level, then do you think they're even going to watch the Yankees game, or they're going to have a nice visit with their grandchild? No, because all they can be thinking about is surviving minute to minute with that high level of pain. Now, a doula giver's pearl is that we're not talking about pain completely being erased or, having somebody knocked out. That's not good pain control. Good pain control is bringing pain down to a therapeutic or manageable level. So maybe a 2 or a 3, and that takes good assessment and that takes good pain management. You can't take pain medicine out of somebody, but you can put more in. So the good rule of thumb is that somebody takes a dosage prescribed by a doctor, evaluates where their pain level at on a pain level of 0 to 10. It should be 4 or below. I would love it at a 2 or 3. Person knows it's there, but it's not occupying every minute of their existence. So that's good pain control. And of course, if their pain is a 2 or a 3, they can have those visits with loved ones. They can partake in some things. So nausea rivals pain and how awful it can be. And here's another doula giver pearl for you here, is that nausea travels 3 different pathways to the brain. There are medications that are prescribed for nausea that some of them just cover one pathway. If your loved one or your client has nausea, but they said, well, I took my nausea medicine, so it's just like I'm out of luck. That's not the case. You need to have a compound anti-nausea, which means it is a medication usually in a cream or something that can go sublingual or a patch that covers all 3 pathways. Take away their nausea and they will love you forever. It's life-changing. So these things are very important. So the first question is, are there any acute issues or immediate needs? The second, and I had said this before, are safety concerns. So as somebody's physical body's declining, their functioning's decline as well. There's 2 things that will always take place in an end-of-life journey. We don't know when they're going to show up, but we know they're going to show up. One day that person will not be able to stand and or walk, And one day that person will not be able to swallow. And both of these can be major safety issues. So we want to be ahead of it. We want to be assessing for it. How many times has somebody gotten up, fallen, broken a hip, ended up in the hospital and died that way on hospice? So we really want to be ahead of it. And the third question is, what other support system do they have? End of life cannot and should not ever be done by one person, but it's done all the time. So you want to make sure that the support is being rotated, that people are coming in for respite care. Let that caregiver be the wife. Let the tasking be off of her. Let her have this last time with her husband. And people are good. They want to help. So allow them to pitch in to take an overnight, even 2 hours in the afternoon, and make a support system scheduler for people to fill in where they want to help support you in this end of life journey. Phase number 2 is the stabilization phase. It's my favorite phase. I also call it the work phase. And you might say, well, Suzanne, what work can somebody do at the end of life? Yeah, there's work to be done. And there's beautiful work that can be done. And I always will make a reference that I feel that everyone's stuff bubbles to the top at the end of life. So one of the major pieces of transformation in this space has been that of forgiveness. We're human beings. We are having this experience. We have challenges. We've had regrets, things that we've done that we regret, things that other people that, have hurt us, all different things we've had for this experience of growth and of learning. That's from a very spiritual, that's from a high perspective. By the way, many times this is what my patients at the end of life will share with me. But I want to talk to you about forgiveness and my patients, because those people who've used forgiveness, utilized forgiveness, have led to the most beautiful end of life experiences I have ever seen. It's like they have released like energy they've been carrying with them. And immediately I remember thinking, wow, if they can look like this and be so free and understand why those things happened, maybe I need to look at people I need to forgive in my life, and even myself. Are there things that I'm still holding on to that can change everything? And when I applied that process, it's life changing. So I want you to know that forgiveness is a very natural thing to help your loved one with, because we always will be at that end of life doing a life review and thinking about the regrets, what we regret, and trying to find the meaning of what we had in our life. And again, a Doula Giver's Pearl for you is that I don't believe it's the fear of end of life that's the number one fear in the world. I believe for my patients, it was the fact that they got a time limit left on their days and that they had major regrets because they haven't lived. So don't let that be you. Don't let that get there. So in the stabilization phase, you want to sit with somebody, you want to talk with them, you want to ask them about their life, just get to know them. There's organically going to be things that come up that need to be worked out and have more light shed on it. And you want to give them the opportunity and the information about forgiveness. And one of the tools that I'll often use in Doula Givers is asking the person, what were you doing when you look at that scenario that you were in at the time? Were you doing the best you could with where you were at that moment? And the answer is always yes. So to have compassion for yourself, and then also if it's someone you want to forgive, think about them and ask yourself, were they doing the best they could with where they were? And it could have come up completely short. I got you. I understand. I think we've all been there. But are they in their own journey of struggle and maybe self-medication and all the things that go along? And it's forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. It releases you. So in the stabilization phase, you want to do life reviews. You want to sit and talk with someone, and you really want to help them reach a place of clarity and acceptance, and utilizing forgiveness, both of self and of others. Phase number 3, the transition phase. This is now, I want to make the comparison to the labor and birthing a baby into this world and the labor of us leaving this world. And that's really what it is. It can be very fast. It can go quick. It can be scary. It can be painful. When you know what is happening and how the body is shutting down naturally, that what you're hearing, what you're seeing, that's all a natural process. Just that alone has brought such peace to families that what you're seeing is a natural part of the dying process and not to be afraid. So, what you want to do is learn the different steps and stages of the way that the body physically shuts down and naturally shuts down. Now, not everyone goes through every step every time, but it's best your clients know that what is happening is a natural part of the end of life process and not to be afraid. Now let's talk about planning ahead, because I alluded, and this is so very people around, been honored to work with people around the world. A better end of life experience by 80 to 90%, no matter what the disease process, was achieved because of planning ahead. So I'm going to share with you what that means. It wasn't many. It wasn't many. We have more now that we're teaching, but I studied ones who actually did have a positive end of life, and what were the elements that made it so. So there's something again called an advance directive. And there's two main parts to that. Number one is a not want for end of life care. And the benchmark that you want to use with that is quality of life to you. It's going to be different for me. It's going to be different for many people on here. It's going to be subjective. So let's say you're somebody who loves to paint. Let's say you're somebody who loves to garden. You're somebody who loves animal rescue, whatever those things are, and you're not able, there comes a point in our journey where we're not able to do those things anymore. You want to make sure that your benchmark is very clear for when you don't want extensive or aggressive measures taken to extend your life when there's no quality there. Because we know how to do that as medical practitioners, but keeping people alive and living are two very different things. So you want to fill that out in a living will about what you would want or not want for end of life care. And then the second part of that is you want to name someone who will speak your wishes for you that you've already chosen in the living will if you're not able to speak for yourself. Now, I want to point out some big misinterpreted, mislanguage confusion that's out there. Anywhere, and I'm not a betting woman, but I would bet you on this one, and I wouldn't bet you money. I just bet like for betting, is that everywhere you look, it says a healthcare proxy. That's what's called a healthcare proxy, is the person that you assign to make medical decisions for you if you can't make them. And that's actually incorrect. They're not making decisions for you. They're speaking the medical decisions that you've already made, and there's a huge difference there. So we want to make sure that's crystal clear. But I also want to tell you that an advance directive is not legally binding. And this is, again, a doula giver's pearl. How do we know this? We know this because, unfortunately, we know this the hard way. And so you might say, well, Suzanne, it says it's a legal document. And yeah, it's known as a legal document, but let's unpack it for a minute. Why was an advance directive created? You would ask me. And that's a great question. Because you did all this work, right? You thought about what you'd want or not want. You have somebody speaking for you, and then the doctor decides that no, they don't agree with that, and they can do whatever they want for their choices. And the law's on the doctor's side. The advance directive was actually created to protect doctors in case they followed your wishes that your family can't sue them. So we have a secret weapon for you. It's going to be okay, something that's come about, but I want you to know about this. The advance directive is not legally binding, but there is something called in the United States, there is something called a MOST form, which stands for Medical Order Life Sustaining Treatment, or the National Post form, which stands for Physician Order Life Sustaining Treatment, which is very similar to the advance directive living will. And what you will do is simply transfer the choices that you've already made, that you've well thought out, onto a MOST or POST form. And that is a signed legal medical order that needs to be followed by law. Now, the caveat is that at this time, you usually in most states in the United States cannot fill out a POLST or a MOLST form until you have a serious illness or an advanced age. That's starting to change. I think California said you could do them at any time, but you want to know about them, because all you want to do is make sure that when that time is appropriate, that you're able to make that a legal medical order. You just transfer what's in your advance directive. And now this is a medical, legally binding order that has to be followed by law. So you're going to ensure that you're going to have your wishes followed. And I'll just, I just will say, most doctors, of course, are, if you have thought about what you want or not want, most doctors are going to follow what you want. But I have to say that there are times that, we don't teach doctors to, first of all, we don't teach them really anything about end of life, how to have the conversation. And so, but we do teach them how to keep us going. And sometimes they have a very hard time thinking outside the box. And so this does come up. And this is a story with one of our doula giver graduates who happened to be a former hospice nurse. She took the course. She learned about the MOLST and the POLST form. And she was caring for her dad at the end of life. He was very seriously ill. And she went to his doctor and said, I'd like to do a POLST form. And the doctor said, I don't know what you're talking about. And so please understand that I think that our medical staff, they're absolute heroes. And I think they're overwhelmed with the amount of patients they have, the very small amount. They have 15-minute visits. That's what they're allocated, 15 minutes with patients. So he didn't even know about it. So again, don't be surprised if some people don't know about it. I said to Kathy, I said, how did you know about it? She said, from your program. So this is information that we really want to share. And this is why I will forego going out to dinner on a night like this and do a live webinar with you, because if I can help one of you avoid pitfalls, but I think we can avoid so many more, that to me is like the best win possible, because these things change lives. So that was actually Kathy's story. And now people are learning about this. And now let's go into death having a rebirth. And I really like to share that. And I love when I did this study, and we did this in the seminar series about, how did death become the number one fear in the world? And really going back into history, the history of dying, and how beautiful ritual was around it, and sacredness was around it, and community was around it. And it's been stripped away. So it's time to bring it back. So there is a rebirth happening. So let's talk about that rebirth. Home wakes. I want to give you a fun fact. Everyone pretty much has a living room in their house, right? Do you know why we have a living room? Because back in the day, 100 years ago, 120 years ago, people were cared for at home. The average age of life was 47, but people were cared for at the end of life at home, and they stayed at home after they died. They were cared for at home. Their bodies were bathed, they were dressed, and they were laid out for viewing. So they were laid out in what's called the parlor room, and people that would come pay respects would congregate in the living room. And that's why we have a living room. So there's just some fun facts with that. This is what I want to say to you, is that is critically important for us to slow down this process. So what's happening right now is we don't think about end of life. It shows up. Usually people are put on hospice for a couple of days because people are in the hospital trying this and that and the other thing. And finally the doctor says, there's no more I can do, which again, our verbiage that we're using it in this space is needs a complete overhaul. There's so much they can do for patients, but that's another webinar. They go home, they have their end of life, families are in shock. And then the next thing they know, they're trying to put the funeral together and, calling the funeral home comes, the body's whisked away. They don't even know what happened. This is contributing so much to traumatic grief and bereavement. So this slowing down this process, and what I will say to you is when your loved one has their end of life, there's a couple of things in that home that's really important. It's very important to take in this moment, to slow down, and for your actual brain to concretely understand that your loved one is not breathing in that body anymore. Now, here's what I think is happening, and this is written in the book, In the Good Death. There has been something that has been talked in many different religions and cultures about the 3-day wake. There's something about 3 days or something about taking that time. And I think what happens there, and the things that I've seen with my families when they slow down, is that they can see that their loved one is not breathing in that body anymore. But sometimes they feel their love, they feel their presence, sometimes stronger in that time period than they've had before. Something inside of them says they're still existing. They're still here. And that's so important for your grief and bereavement. And so slowing this down and not rushing this gives you the opportunity to have that experience. Now, also bring back ritual, tell stories, read things. If they're sit in prayer, allow children to partake, because this is something, again, we need to allow children to understand once again that death is a natural part of the life cycle. They are so incredibly aware. And when we start acting a certain way and making stuff up and shielding things, we're telling them something's wrong here. We're telling them there's something to be feared. How many adults today do I know that tell me that they love their grandparent and the next thing they knew, grandma was gone and they weren't allowed to see them, and they were just, they didn't understand it. They couldn't go to their funeral, like the whole thing. And it's traumatizing. So allow age appropriate children to ask questions, to be part of this. And this should be a celebratory slowing down of a ritual. It also can be extremely financially friendly to slow down and to choose something other than, what most of us know is what's the standard funeral, which when we go into default, I think in 2022 or 2023, the average funeral was, the standard funeral was said to be between 7,000 and change to 11,000 and change, or close to 12,000. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that a lot of people don't have. When you have choices, you can actually tailor this into a more meaningful and ceremonial space. And also it can be a cost-effective one. So slowing down home wakes, really beautiful, really important, but have so many benefits to them that I really want you to look into that option. Now, they're putting fun back into funerals. And yes, I did say that, but it's a coined phrase. And I believe it was from Shotzi Weisberger, who was one of my co-hosts in the Death Cafe, Upper West Side, New York City. She had a funeral. She would call them funerals. And she actually had one. She was not ill. I think she was 88 at the time. And she had about 100 people in her community room of her apartment building in New York City. There was a band, there was food, there was dancing. She had her, was it a cardboard box? I think it was a cardboard box because she was having a natural burial. People were decorating it. I mean, it was a beautiful event. It was a funeral. It was a living celebration. And then there's also living wakes. So we know that people have wakes after somebody has died, and people started to say, wait a minute, people are saying all these really nice things about me. I want to be there. Maybe, and it gives people an opportunity. So people are choosing to have living wakes that they're a part of, that everyone can say their goodbyes. And so these are really different options that are coming about. And what I want you to focus on is that it's a celebration of that life. And I think we need to think in terms of that life that was lived is never going to not be a part of us, because what we've experienced, what the love, the memories, all of it are always with us. And so to celebrate that person and what they contributed in the times we've had, instead of, maybe just having the one option, maybe the way that we should be looking at this a little bit more. I know in New Orleans, they have been doing this forever. They have huge parades and bands and carry the people, and people are dancing and singing. But this is coming about, and these are some really great options that are being written about, and people are choosing. And I'm going to say, I agree with both of them. I think they're great options. Now, let's talk for a minute, if we can, about our choices and the impact on our beautiful planet. We know that we're in a time of a big shift in our world, and growth is painful, and it's changing rapidly, and it's changing on all different fronts. So everything, when we talked about end of life, that everyone's stuff bubbles to the top, I think that's what's happening with our collective world as well, right? So everything's sort of bubbling to the top, and it can seem overwhelming and chaotic and scary and unstable, but breathe, because you have that human and being part of it. And I believe this is a huge part. So we know that our beautiful Mother Earth is suffering greatly because we have not been very good guests. Let's just put it that way. And again, there's no judgment here. Let's just be clear. For me, as the hospice nurse, seeing what people were going into default, and again, there's nothing wrong with choices. You can choose whatever you want for disposition, what's called disposition, but I want you to know you have choices. And I also want you to make an informed choice. Because when I started studying this and realized that, okay, we have 78 million people in the United States over the age of 65 at this very moment. If each one of those people for their end of life chooses to be embalmed with embalming fluid and put in non-biodegradable caskets and put into the earth, we have a really big problem. We already have a big problem right now, but we have a really big problem. Now, through this work, I have been privy to most people not understanding like any of this. And so most people are under the false assumption that people have to be embalmed by law. That's not true. So embalming is a toxic fluid that goes into the body. I mean, it's actually developed to bring in the Civil War to bring back soldiers to preserve their bodies. And for some reason it stayed. Shouldn't be. Yes, within certain circumstances for sure. And you can choose whatever you want, but it shouldn't be the default. So your toxic embalming fluid, which is toxic to the provider who's doing it as well, and then put into the earth. And we're killing the planet. We have to start making good choices. So here's what I want to say to you. This is really empowering, because for me, and I want you to sit with this as well, if I make a choice now about for when I'm not here that can have a positive impact on the planet, that makes me super happy. So not only does it make me feel good, but it also spiritually brings me comfort knowing that I will contribute, that I can make a choice that can contribute to the earth, like going back into that full circle. And here's the other thing, that it's financially more friendly as well as the option. So something called a natural and or green burial. Why I have both is because there's something, you might have heard the buzzword green burial. And we love that, right? Dying to be green. That's what I call my chapter in this part of the movement. But green burials have very specific criteria to where a green burial plot can be. So it's a little bit more strict and who can actually be buried there. It has just more limitations to the plot and how you can qualify to be in there. A natural burial is the same thing as a green burial. It means that you're not choosing to be embalmed, that you're going to be buried in a biodegradable pine box, cardboard box, or shroud, and you will go back into earth. So, and they're supposed to be available in most locations. So again, that's a very accessible, easy thing to do. That's what Shotzi chose. She had people decorating her casket, which is beautiful, and putting notes in there and lots of love. So natural and green burial means simply that you will go back into its natural state, nothing toxic, and go back into the earth to become once again part of the earth. Now, there's something relatively new called a water cremation, also known as an aquamation. And that is the most environmentally friendly, or at least one of the top environmentally friendly options, because it reduces. So you go into a steel chamber, your body will be placed in a steel chamber and put with alkaline hydrolysis solution that will reduce your body into its natural compounds. So what it's reduced to is minerals, and those minerals can actually be used as fertilizer. And what's beautiful about water cremation is that it doesn't have any impact on the ozone layer, very, very minimal CO2 emissions. Whereas fire cremation, although I had in my years past thought that fire cremation was the better choice of everything, and probably better than the embalming. However, it still has a huge impact on the ozone layer that I didn't know about. But if you have religious reasons and cultural reasons, by all means, choose whatever is right for you, but know we have choices. So aquamation, they're not available yet in every state, but more and more are taking them on. And you can choose to have your body transported to the states that have them. But I do think that they're going to be available in most states very soon. And again, economically friendly, environmentally friendly, and beautiful options that, again, contribute back into the planet, then detract from it. And then human composting. You might have heard of human composting. So this is being done. You're mixed with other elements of compost material. And from what I hear, there's a good amount of compost that comes out of that. And so your family can bring compost and make a beautiful garden, spread that compost where they want. And then the excess, or you can even have it put into beautiful forest areas that are preservation. So again, making choices that can be environmentally, spiritually, and emotionally very sound is exciting. When we think we don't have a lot of options, we have a lot of options that benefit in win-win-win. Here's another win: body donation. And so we know that people are struggling right now with finances, and we know that dying is expensive, and it shouldn't be, because that shouldn't come into this equation. People worrying about how to pay for things, they should just be present with the fact that they're saying goodbye to their loved one in their physical form. So there's a body donation that you can do for medical research and medical schools. This means that, and I can talk from a medical practitioner, having the ability to actually work tactilely, learning on a real body, is one of the best ways that you hone your skills. And so if you choose to donate your body to a medical institution for students to learn, when I think about it, if my body can help doctors learn and hone their craft, that they can go out and then help thousands and thousands of people, like, to me, that is a win. Now, here's the other win: it costs zero money. So if you choose to donate your body, the medical school will pick up the body when you're ready. They will then use the body for medical research. Then when they're done, they will have a cremation. Many of them will have a ceremony, a memorial for you, and then deliver the ashes back to the family for zero money. So you want to make sure, and again, not to go down anything negative, but you do have to be mindful that, anyone on the internet can put up a shiny website and this and that. Everyone can make things look good. You want to make sure that you're donating your body to a reputable institution. And there is a link that we have for the anatomical body donation from Florida that lists all of the vetted medical institutions and schools that are fantastic. So if you're interested in that, that's the list you should go for. But, it's interesting because even people who it's not a financial consideration, this might be something that they want to do. They want to donate so that they want to contribute again in that type of capacity, and that's available to you. So there's lots of things and lots of ways that we can, again, pay it forward into a positive way with our choices after we have our end of life. Now, I want to highlight that these two things make end of life better by 80 to 90%. Number one, doing your advance directive. There's a Doula Giver's 9-choice advanced directive document that we have. It's the 9 choices that people need to choose to have that complete positive passing. And number two, learning the skills on how to care for someone at the end of life before you ever need it. The time to learn how to care for your loved one at the end of life is not when you're in it. It's very hard to learn it there. We're usually just putting Band-Aids on. So you can get both of those things for free at doulagivers.com. And now the Doula Givers free family caregiver level 1 training is available in 15 languages. So we want to make sure that everyone around the world has the ability to have a positive end of life. A positive end of life should not be a privilege. It should be a human right. And we're going to make sure that that training is available and offered for free for whoever wants to take it. You can get both of those for free at doulagivers.com. And I want to thank you and talk to you for a minute about moving forward for positive change and what's called the good death movement, because it's happening and you can see. And here's the thing. When we talk about a good death movement, we're talking about a good life movement. They're not exclusive of one another. It brings us in the full circle. And I often will say, isn't it ironic that we're going to change the world by talking about death, right? By death teaching us, but it's not, because this is exactly how it's meant to be. So this webinar is part of a larger mission to reconnect us with, again, the sacredness of death, both as a deeply personal experience and an opportunity to transform our world. Be a part of the Good Death movement and the community. So if you like this content, you will absolutely love the Good Death book. The Good Death book is just like the What to Expect When You're Expecting, but for the other end of life. And every family should have this book. I want to show you because we have recently got the copies. This is coming out. It's going to be on your doorstep March 18th, which is super exciting, but you can pre-order it now. And it is an amazing book. This could be called The Good Life because it's a life book as well. The Good Death was distilled down all the information from the Doula Givers training courses, all of it. So it's all in that book. And I have learned all of this information from decades in the healthcare profession. And I provide you with a step-by-step guide to preparing for the future death of a loved one and helping them through the actual passing when the time comes. This book will equip you with everything they need to know to prepare for financial, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual good death, both for you and for your loved ones. And every family should have this book, and we hope they do. And I just want to share with you one of the editorial reviews that has come in. This essential guide to every aspect of dying, from hospice care to spiritual and real world needs, can also serve as an excellent manual for readers seeking bereavement and grief support. And this was from the Library Journal. We're so grateful for that. And as a gift for you coming here and also celebrating this moment, like we are less than 4 weeks away from the launch of this book, which by the way, was in its development for over 3 years. Yes, 3 years. A special thank you and a gift. When you buy one book, you pre-order one book of The Good Death, you get the free masterclass called the Good Death, Good Life event. It's going to be a live virtual event, conversations with me. We're going to do group exercises. It's going to be on March 22nd. That's a $497 value. You get that masterclass for free with an order of one book. If you get 3 books, you want to be a real part of the Good Death movement, you're going to get the masterclass. You're also going to get the Confident Caregiver course. That is a $997 value. The Doula Givers Confident Caregiver course is a condensed version of our award-winning and world-renowned Doula Givers certified end-of-life doula program designed specifically for family caregivers of end-of-life patients. And again, it has everything in it from the end-of-life doula training designed for families. It's a comprehensive program that equips family caregivers with all of the knowledge they need to compassionately guide their loved one through end-of-life journey. When you buy 3 books, this is the ask. We ask you to keep one and simply give 2 away so that people you love can have this empowering and often life-changing information. This is our collective effort in changing end of life for the better for every single person everywhere in the world. So what people are saying about the Confident Caregiver course, I'll just share one of the feedback so that you understand what this course is about. She said, Suzanne, thank you for the beautiful seminar last night and for the resources you make available for those of us in our communities who are helping our friends and neighbors in a non-professional capacity. Having taken your Confident Caregiver course gave me the valuable information and confidence that guided me through the final 17 days of my best friend's life. She says, I was honestly astonished that the information from this course, which I had taken last fall, helped me in every single day and sometimes hour by hour through that journey. What a blessing you are, and amen to your why in writing this book. I can't wait to have it and share. Thank you so much. Many blessings to you. Thank you so much. This is the course. And I want you to have that if you would like to be part again. I want you to be able to have the access to that course. And of course, I think tonight you understand how I feel about forgiveness, the transformational power, what I have seen it do for my doulas, what have I seen it done for my patients, what I've seen it done for myself. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. This, by the way, is a picture of my bedroom, or my former bedroom, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Just look at the magic and love of this beautiful journey that we're all on. But I want to share with you a surprise that I also want to give you the forgiveness workshop. And that's a 400 for the 3 books. That's a $497 value. Why am I doing that? I know the transformational power in this forgiveness workshop. In fact, many doulas who've taken our certified end of life doula training have said that, because it's a bonus for that course, have said that the whole tuition fee was worth it for this forgiveness workshop, which we don't sell anywhere. So if that's something that speaks to you, grab these bonuses. They are available now for the celebration at this moment, and they're only for a time limit. So again, just to recap, then we're going to get to your questions. You pre-order 1 book today, you get the virtual masterclass. We're going to have such an amazing time that day. Everyone should be there. And again, I'm going to give you the framework for the good life, something that I put together that I use every single day that has allowed me to just have just an amazing, incredible journey from these 5 pillars of practice that I use every single day. And then you get 3 books. When you pre-order 3 books today, you can be a major part of the Good Death movement. You're going to get the virtual masterclass, the Confident Caregiver course that's open to you for life, and the forgiveness workshop. So that again is a total value of $2,078 for just 3 books. Keep 1 and give 2 away. Now, again, this is going to be while supplies last for the courses, and only for a short time period. So if it speaks to you, go ahead and grab that. I think you should. It's an amazing offer. How you're going to access your bonus is that you're going to see a screen. We're going to give you the links in the chat here. You're going to see an offer that looks like this. The page will come up for the book page. These actually are clickable. So these icons are where you can purchase your books. There's 2 steps to getting your bonuses. You would click on your preferred distributor, and then you would buy your 3 books. Then you would come back to this page and fill out this form. Your name, your last name, your email, your phone number, your order number, your confirmation or order number for your purchase, how many books you bought, and then submit that. So that is how we'll put the links in the chat. And if you have any questions on that, and again, please do not wait on that, because that will be available probably till about the next midnight tonight, 24 hours, because we have to keep moving on. I can't have my staff overloaded with that. They're probably a little upset with me already, how many things that I'm doing, but I love them and they've been great. But I also want to celebrate this moment, and I know the difference that these things can make. So let's get in the chat. Let's do some Q&A. Before we do hop in, let me just, because the request has been, let me share with you what that actual page looks like when you're going to go in, so there's no confusion. So here's your 3 purchase page. You come down, you click here. These are clickable. You can go to Target, you can go to Amazon, whoever you prefer. You can buy it from whoever you want. Purchase your books, whether it's the 1, you'll get the 1 link for the masterclass, or the 3, you'll have the bonuses for this page. Come fill out your page, your order number, your confirmation number. You click here for the 3 books, consent, submit, and we will get you your bonuses. Okay. If anyone has a story that you want to share, you can do that as well. That is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I want to thank our team, Nicholas Infante from behind the scenes, for taking the questions and putting the links in there as well. Okay, thank you. You guys are amazing. You're from all over here. That is really beautiful. Okay, so let me get to some questions. If you can put #question so I can get to the questions quickly, because I know there's a lot of love here, which is wonderful. Yeah, Annie says homes are rarely equipped for the dying. Yeah, there's preparation. There's practical preparation that's needed. Lori says, I'm a hospice volunteer and I get more calls than my patient has been taken off of hospice for extended prognosis than I do that they have died. That's tragic. I don't understand that at all. This is a result of Medicare regulations and Medicare fraud. It pisses me off. Whew. Yeah, we need to remember that death should not be outsourced, that families have so many rights, including keeping their loved one at home after they've died. Like, they don't have to let that person just be whisked away. And again, I'm saying it in ways to really make a point. Yeah, the workbook. Do we have the workbook link for people who were not able? You guys have a great workbook that you're going to be able to download if you'd like and save from tonight. It's really beautiful. No worries, Lily. You said you were late, and a lot of these, okay, so a lot of these are coming to me. Let me just see if I can go to everyone in the group, because a lot of all your things are coming to me personally, which is really lovely, and I love that. But I also think it's great for all of us to see. So let's see if we can see that. Okay. Lily says Reiki. Yeah, Reiki is wonderful. We have, we talk a lot about holistic modalities to help with end of life. Now, let's be very honest. Western medicine, relatively new, like in the big picture. Eastern medicine, been around for thousands of years, by the way. So when East meets West and using those things, Reiki, essential oils, meditation, acupuncture, massage, just different things really, really, really work. So I love that. Thank you so much. Deborah says, thank you for all you do. Okay, beautiful. Linda says that price includes the funeral site burial. Yeah, so when you can do it for about $200, have a funeral. So it will depend where you live, what the prices are for a natural burial plot, whether or not you're in a state that you have to have a funeral director do the death permit, file the permit. So there's different state regulations. One of the best resources is the National Home Funeral Alliance.org to find state by state criteria, but you can absolutely do it. And here's the thing, I love this. Getting a bunch of friends together and having in the backyard and having, everyone bring a dish and having a celebration. First of all, it makes it so intimate and personal. And, it can be done on a fraction of it. So here, AS Quarter. So thank you. A lot of these messages are coming to me directly, so I'm going to read them. We used to have a monthly get together where we gathered a bunch of friends, about 200 or 300, and we would teach a needed to learn skill. 1 month we did one on death and dying. The first half we showed how to make a simple casket. The second half we went over legal things concerning death. I love this. You don't have to be embalmed. You can make your own casket. We had one man say it was very therapeutic, was his last loving act he did for his mom. It was a beautiful crafted casket. How beautiful that is. Where to bury, unless you live in urban, you can bury on your own property. You can at times. I don't want to get too far. I don't want to lose people, but it is possible. It depends on where you are. Must have public access to the cemetery, etc. Yeah, knowledge is empowering. There's lots of choices that we have. When we don't talk about it, we don't know. Okay, Lori says, already paid for my husband and my composting. Fire to that. I'm giving some effects here because that is amazing. Love that. Nicole says, is cremation greener? So fire cremation is greener than embalming and not put in non-biodegradable caskets, but there's still a significant impact on the ozone layer that we're finding. So I would invite you to check out other options if you would, like water cremation, natural burial, composting, but it's your choice. And so there's some beautiful religions and cultures that the fire cremation is a part of, and that should always, it should always be a choice. Just know that we have choices, and making informed ones is really, really important. So yeah, so thank you for that. You are so welcome, Annie. Oh, yeah. She says, thank you, Suzanne. You're an angel. Everyone needs to know this. I agree. I agree. I feel like, and again, I want to just invite people on if they want to ask me questions and have information, because it can be and is life-changing. Deborah says, I cannot wait for the book to come out. Me either. Me either. It is so exciting, and it's coming out basically everywhere. So all over Europe, which is lovely, all in Spanish speaking countries, in China. Why? Because we're a global family in our humanity. We have an aging population globally. It's not going well globally, and it's time to bring that back. Now, what is really exciting, what we talked about, is we're going to change the world by talking about end of life and all that it teaches us. And we're together on this because it's being talked about globally, which is wonderful. Fabiana says, is the book available in Spanish? Yeah, I'm waiting for the link for the release date, but they actually have a different cover that they made. So this is the cover for most of us that we have, with the tree and the butterflies blowing off in the wind, which is very representative of exactly what happens and what's in that book. The Spanish cover, I'll show it to you guys soon. They made it a little different, which is really beautiful, and it's unique, and it's going to be available. As soon as it is, I'll make sure that I post that link where you can get it. But for all Spanish speaking countries. You get the Confident Caregiver and the Forgiveness course immediately. So the book will be at your home March 18th, if for those of you in the United States and Canada, and the 20th in Europe. But you get your access to your bonuses immediately. So like you can start working on those right away, and you have those courses for you for life. So if I were you, I would consider strongly, because it's such a great thing to do if you want them, to do it now. And if you're somebody who maybe is already a certified end-of-life doula student and says, well, I don't really need that course, but maybe I'll get it and give it to someone as a gift, then that's always an option as well. Yeah, Sarah. So Sarah says, if we already ordered the 3 books, can we still get the forgiveness workshop? Yeah, surprise to everyone. If you ordered early in the seminar series journey of this, we added the forgiveness and all of you are getting it. So yay, like yay to that. I love that. There's no code that you need for the books. You just need to fill that form out and submit it to our team, and we'll get them. I love how many of you want the forgiveness workshop. Yes, you're getting it. If you got the 3 books, even in the beginning, that's coming your way, and that should be a nice surprise for you all. So excited to finally get my 3 books and start the courses. Thank you for all you do. We are beyond blessed. Thank you. We are beyond blessed. Our community is so beautiful. And if I can break it down into something that's relatively simple, this is the moment in our life. This is the moment in our world that you have a choice, and this is your choice. You are either going to show up in love, or you're going to show up in fear. And that goes across the board. So in everything we do, I either have a choice to come at it angry, argumentative, fighting, choosing one winner, one loser, all of that, or I have my heart that can lead me, and I'm going to show up in love. And you know what? We're choosing love. And that's what we need to know. And that's what you learn from people at the end of life, that you're a human being and that you have 2 directionals that are guiding you. And when we don't understand that, because people at the end of life, as their physical body is diminishing, their spiritual body is growing, and it's almost like they have 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the next, and they get what I call their spiritual eyes or spiritual wisdom and all this clarity. And they're like, oh, I understand now. I know why that happened. I know why that, like everything starts to make sense in the most peaceful, beautiful way. And they're starting to focus with their heart guidance. And we can do that here, but we have to know about it, and we have to make the choice to do that. Not judging each other, understanding that every single person has a story that we know nothing about, and that we don't have the right to judge each other. We shouldn't judge ourselves. So showing up in a place of presence, really, really important at this moment. Yeah, thank you guys. Have been wonderful. Okay, any choice over how your body is disposed of after medical research donation? Interesting question, Jennifer. So I don't know, but here's what I'm intuitively getting. I think because the green options like water cremation are becoming a very, very important choice for people, I think medical institutions were doing pretty much fire cremation because they need to do something with the body to be able to transport it. But I think they're going to be adding in greener versions that you can choose from as well, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, great. Okay. Diana says, question, what is the #1 thing you recommend to get started to see if being a death doula is right for you? I love that question. I would suggest to come to the level 1 training, and I believe I'm doing it next week on the 27th, because that's going to teach you all about start to finish end of life, what that looks like, what we teach that first level in our certification course. And then I'm going to answer all the questions about practice. So when you come to the level 1, if you come to that 90-minute and you are like, absolutely feel aligned with this, then you know it's right. So if we can put that link up, team, Nicholas Infante, for that would be great for the webinar next week. Kelly says, I bought 1 book. If I buy 2 more, will that equal the 3? It sure will. So go ahead, Kelly, you can get the 2 more and then just fill out that form, and I'll note that you have 1 previous one, and we'll add you to the bonuses. Jennifer says, what happens after water cremation? You are dissolved into your most organic component of minerals in this beautiful little vehicle that we've been given. And that's a beautiful thing, because it's a natural composition, and it just happens quickly, and we're not taking up space, and we're not emitting emissions for the process of what it is. So again, it's just a viable choice that people can have. Question, is it true that the last sense to leave is the sense of hearing? That's what they say. But I do want to share this with you. I believe that people can not only hear you, I believe they can see you. Because this is what happens, is that it is so common for people who are in a deep sleep coma to wait for the 5 minutes. And by the way, it's usually 1 to 3 days that people are in a deep sleep coma, that the body will have its end of life. People will wait for that 5 minutes for somebody to walk out of the room, for them to have their end of life, which is counterintuitive, by the way, of what people think. And how do they know you left? They also sometimes will wait for someone to come. They will also sometimes wait for a date or something to be resolved. So what is the awareness they know? That is a greater awareness. So I believe, so yes. One of the things I think that we really want to know about the hearing is that you want to talk to your loved one. You want to talk to your loved one. You want to encourage your family members to have alone time and talk to their loved one. They can hear you. So if you feel that there's something that wasn't said, or that, that maybe couldn't be said, or whatever it may be, they can hear you. I talk to people all the time. I also think it's incredibly comforting for them to know you're there, to know you're in the room. So encourage them, and also give family alone time so that they can have personal conversations that wouldn't happen in a room full of people. Yeah, Christina says, do you also certify death doulas or end of life doulas? Absolutely. Yeah, that's what big thing of what we're known for. So again, Christina, I'll have our team put the link in for our free introductory webinar next week that you can hear all about. And I'm actually going to give you the whole level 1 training. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Yep. Nicholas, you're getting that. Beth says, question, what do you know about organ donation as well as whole body donation at the time of death? So unfortunately, organ donation is very select. Not many people qualify to be organ donators, especially if they are elderly, have gone through different, medications and different things. It's hard to qualify for that. But organ donation was a great, and it is a beautiful gift and option for unfortunate circumstances where somebody's life ends short and they have these viable organs that can give sustaining life to other people. But full whole body donation is something that we can pretty much all do at the end of life to the medical schools. So again, those are 2 very different things, but I know from my experience, it's been much more difficult to be accepted as an organ donator with an elderly and with disease processes. Yeah, so that workbook link, if you guys did not get your workbook for tonight's this seminar here, please know that it's in the chat in the link, and you can go ahead and grab it. Deborah says, I took and got my doula giver through you, and it helped with losing my mother-in-law and sister. Thank you, Deborah, for sharing that and sending you so much love around that. And that just, makes me so grateful that it can help. And this is the hope, right? Because not all of us, when we think about, the what to expect when you're expecting, but for the opposite end of life, this book, not all of us are going to choose to have babies, and that's fine. But all of us will have an end of life and we'll be asked to show up for people at the end of life. And knowing how to do that changes everything. B says, my brother-in-law was cremated with water 3 years ago and the first in his country to do so. I tell everyone about it, but he was initially going to be traditionally cremated with fire, and the funeral home didn't change the price for my sister because it's cheaper here in Minnesota. I think that's horrible. Yeah, I don't want to get into a rabbit hole about money and end of life, but let's just say make our choices. Let's just say let's get all our information and make really good choices. And you have the choices. It's your choice. Kelly says, if we go to the site, where do we see to sign up for the courses? So Kelly, are you wanting the courses for the bonuses? If you are, you want to do the link for the 3 books. If you want to do the level 1 webinar next week, then you can go to doulegivers.com, or it's in the thread here as well. And you can sign up. It's on the 27th and it's live next week. It'll be live and it's life-changing. Question, do living wakes provide the same healing for those that are and will be left behind? My view is that funerals with the deceased person's body ashes present helps the spirit get to where it needs to go and those left behind to where they need to be. Yeah. Helps everyone. And please understand that every single person is attached to that person that's having an end of life. Family members, neighbors, coworkers, children, everyone is experiencing that, and everyone will have a better experience when we bring it into a communal supported event, and they can have pathways for their healing. You guys have so many beautiful questions, and I don't want to keep you all night, but I just want to answer as many as I can. Kevin says, can I ask you how much the book costs? There's different costs depending on where you get it. I think somebody said Books A Million might be one of the less expensive ones, but you just click around, you can see. Messages are coming to you. There's no other option in chat box. Okay. All right. So we'll look at that. But anyway, so I'm reading you all and your messages. So thank you so much. How does one become a certified death doula? Yes, come to the free level 1 next week and find out about that. We'd really love if you're interested. You will know after that course if you feel that resonates with you. Catherine says, are there dates for the Confident Caregiver and the Forgiveness Workshop? No, they're already recorded. You're going to get instant access to them. They are wonderful. You're going to love them. So hashtag question so that I can get to your beautiful questions. I just want to read this one. Has doula training, I hope, integrated the mind-blowing, heartwarming, comforting findings of 5 decades of research on near-death experiences and shared death experiences? Yeah. Yeah, Maria, thank you. Yeah, there's so much that I want to share with you all, that there is and I'll just briefly share with you that there is a common thread between what I see with people at the end of life as they get closer to their time of death, what they're saying and seeing, what people have reported from near-death experiences, and what studies are showing with psilocybin now for people at the end of life. They're all saying the same things, that we're all connected, that it's unconditional love, that there is no such thing as death, like life-changing information. So thank you for that share. That's beautiful. Beautiful. You're all getting the Forgiveness Workshop. Yes, that ordered the 3 books. Great webinar. Thank you. Beautiful. Love it. Okay. Yes. So Monica, thank you. She says you can order the books from anywhere, not just those listed. Thrift Books has best price. Thank you, Monica. Thank you. Thrift Books. Let's go. So thriftbooks.com. Thank you. Yeah, you can buy. And then also you have the option of also adding in a Kindle if you want for the 3 book. You can do a combination of them. You guys are beautiful. Thank you for putting really fun links in there. Yeah, so some people are coming on, not just to me. So I love that. Maybe I switched it. So thank you. Lori's a hospice volunteer. I love that. Thank you so much for the course. You are so welcome. I cannot wait to tell you when it's available in Spanish. John says you're so right, and it's great to hear about these options. People don't realize how expensive things can get. Your average cost is a lot higher depending on where you are, like in New York City, and the families can't deal with all of that at the last minute. They can't. Thank you, John, for sharing that. Marianne says, my brother died suddenly a few weeks